Welcome to our 95th podcast. Today we're continuing our conversation about goal setting and motivation, specifically digging more into motivation. What's one thing you could do to create motivation or keep it going? Keep listening to find out. Welcome to Harmonious Workplaces, a podcast about corporate culture, organizational change management, and workplace behavior. Harmonious Workplaces was started by independent consultants Rich Cruz, Ben Kleinman, and Cheryl Volpe to explore, challenge, and build on various organizational culture and change management concepts. It's a blend of theory and practice based on their personal and professional experiences working with companies of all sizes across various industries. If you own a business, lead a team, want new ideas about the corporate environment, or just want to listen to a group of consultants talking about how to make work more enjoyable, we invite you to sit back, relax, and dive in with us to Harmonious Workplaces. Hello, Harmonious Workplaces listeners. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Rich Cruz, an organizational development. I can't even talk this morning. Hey. It's more like the Hindenburg.
It's like one of those, when you have those balloons that you're blowing up and it sort of slips out of your fingers. And
That's right. Oh, man. All right. I'm getting too
all right,
old
here
for
we go.
this. Here we go. 5, 4. Hello, Harmonious Workplaces listeners. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Rich Cruz, an organizational development consultant, and I'm joined by Ben Kleinman in, is it sunny LA today? I don't know.
It will be. Yeah.
It will be sunny LA.
Yep,
All right.
it will be sunny and warm.
All right. Our resident CCMP, certified change management professional. And Ben, we're going to continue talking about motivation. So we started last episode 94, with goal setting and motivation, mainly motivated by, that's one of our top keywords that drive traffic to our website for for the content that we have up there.
Yeah.
But we did quite a bit of talking last time about goal setting, but this time we're going to talk a little bit more about motivation, right? Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I love that, you were doing a lot of analytics work at the end of the year and seeing what people were looking for, what was driving traffic to our site, what we're becoming known for. All that stuff is great. And so some of the things that popped up, goal setting and motivation. And so we started last week, like you said, talking about goal setting, touching a little bit on motivation, and we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into motivation today, I think, and try to tie some of those things together. So all good stuff. I love that we're kind of becoming known for that.
Yep.
So without necessarily repeating the entirety of last episode, maybe we could do a quick recap of that and then dive into the motivation-y part of it, and then try to bring those to goal setting, motivation, bring those to a nice, tidy.
Let's Ben. Let's do that.
Let's
All
shall.
right.
I like that.
So we talked about goal setting theory, goal setting theory coming from a long list of research that was that's been going on through the last century to this century, right? But
That is
goal
so
setting
last century.
It's so less. Back to the future, man. but Locke and Latham, right? Two people that we have cited in several different articles that we've written and the like, and they talked about goal setting theory that says that people are motivated by having to perform, right? They're motivated by clear, challenging goals that. Now, we added into this, right, that there's some degree of organizational commitment and that they are involved in the co-creation of those goals.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say a combination of personal commitment and organizational commitment.
Yeah, right.
There was that aspect of it. And then we built on that, or we wove into that, this idea of SMART goals. And so your resident goal expert, SMART goals.
Oh, I have to explain the acronym for this one. All right. So they're specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time constrained. And if my class is listening, make sure you have that SMART goal ready for Thursday. Because
That's great.
literally
No longer are you yelling at just your children. Now you're yelling at your entire class.
my
I love
entire
it.
class. That's right.
Why you were
But
motivated to have a podcast, so you could expand your platform to yell at your students.
that's right. It's pure. It's
Purely
pure
it.
me.
I love it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I'm
truly fantastic.
asserting my dominance en masse to everybody out there. Yes.
Just now we know how Professor Cruz rolls in his HR classes or his
There you go. That's right.
design classes.
Well, this one happens to be a marketing class, which you
Oh
still
my
need to
gosh.
have. Yeah. Yeah. But
Wow.
you still
Okay.
need to
You're a
have
man of many talents.
goals. So
That's fantastic.
awesome.
So I love that. Thank you for just being so on the spot with that. So we kind of tied together the ideas of goal setting theory with
Right.
this notion of SMART goals, which maybe evolved out of goal setting theory as sort of a way to make it a little easier for most people, corporations, average managers to try to internalize it and just make it simpler to action, things like that. And they
Yep.
tied together pretty nicely. So that was one thing. And then we also last week talked a little bit about why goal setting fails, why goals fail in general. And you can imagine that's just the inverse. Goals are too abstract. They're disconnected from whatever resources you need or whatever authority you need to implement that goal or activate that goal. We talked about how goals stacked on top of broken systems or broken platforms are just a recipe for disaster. Talked
Sure.
about this idea that you mentioned about having feedback and consistent check-ins, consistent coaching, all of that. If that's not there, if that doesn't facilitate or enable the goal, it's very unlikely to succeed. And then the idea of co-creation filtered into
Right.
that as well. So kind of have to
Sure.
have that. So with those things, goal setting, goal achievement tends to work better than without those things.
Yeah. And
Cool.
I think what you had mentioned in the last, what you had just explained and in the last episode, right? Specifically that being disconnected from resources and some of those resources being just, being empowered to
Yeah.
do things and to
Yeah.
have the autonomy to perform the work in some way that you know how to do it, right?
Right.
Right. Is a factor that keeps us motivated in the goals that we set.
Yeah. Well, you've talked before about knowledge, skills, and ability and having the competency for something. And so you can have some of those, but if you don't have all of those, is your goal to achieve the ability or is your goal to use that ability to achieve something like building
Right.
a widget or
Yep.
serving a client? And, that's where some of those things like autonomy and authority and resources very
Yeah.
much come into play.
Sure. That reminds me. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. This is not in our show notes, but I'm going to bring it up anyway.
Rich going
so-
rogue.
Going rogue, but there's a series of books by somebody named Ryan Holiday, and he
Okay.
writes about the virtues. And this particular his last book, which is the last of the 4 in the series, talks about wisdom, right? And it's not about knowledge for the sake of gathering knowledge. It's knowledge for the sake of using it for some end, right? And constantly learning. And it was interesting that like some of those powerful influential people, right? Like Abraham Lincoln, he brings him up a lot, right? Has been they remained a student their entire life. Like he was on, I remember one story where he was on a case and he was removed from the case, but he still stayed there and listened in and participated, and then went back into the case law to learn everything over again, like he was like a fresh student, right?
Wow.
And it just kept him. He was extremely motivated to like master this, even though his colleagues were like, "Why are you doing this. You're off the case, like
Yeah.
stop it, Abe. you know. But I think that, developing that mastery is something that a lot of people, I mean, there are, so just we're going to talk about motivation, extrinsic, intrinsic, right? Some people are intrinsically motivated to do this stuff and to develop some degree of mastery. But I think we all have some degree of where we want to really own some, those knowledge, skills, and abilities and use them to some better end, for
Yeah.
with meaning, right? We've talked about that before with Viktor
Mhm.
Frankl and the like.
Yeah. No, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
It all makes sense.
So I don't know. I took us totally off track there, Ben.
No, it's a great lead-in to
Right.
our discussion of motivation as part of the goal setting and
Right.
motivation part of
Yeah.
this show.
Sure.
Maybe we take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll dig into motivation.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. We'll be right back.
In a world where leadership needs clarity and action, and HR gets left out of the loop, one hermit crab steps in to save the day, only to be shut down by management. From the creators of Hermie the HR Hermit Crab and the Harmonious Workplaces podcast comes a new shell-shocking adventure, Out of the Loop into the Fire, or HR Hung Out to Dry. This book blends workplace satire with evidence-based lessons, reminding leaders that culture, trust, and people strategy don't exist as extras. They form the foundation of lasting success. Whether you work as an HR professional, a leader, or just someone who has survived a few too many staff meetings, Hermie's stories will make you laugh, think, and maybe even change the way you see your workplace. Purchase Hermie the HR Hermit Crab, Out of the Loop, Into the Fire, or HR Hung Out to Dry, now available on Amazon and Ingram Spark. Shop now at harmoniousworkplaces.com/HermieHRCrab. That's harmoniousworkplaces.com/HermieHRCrab.
Huh, they changed your Fred.
And we're back. All right, Ben, we're going to talk about motivation and give it to me. What do you got? What do you got in the notes here? Just the two different types of motivation.
Well, yeah, no, you just teed it up perfectly. So we have essentially researchers have broken down motivation into two different types. There's
Mhm.
extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is when you're driven by something externally, either a reward, you press the lever, you get a pellet, or pressure to avoid punishment. So if you don't press the lever, you get shocked, that kind of a thing.
Sure.
And that can be really good for short-term gains or short-term achievement of goals, but it's much harder to sustain that in the long term. If you don't keep getting the reward, you'll stop pushing the button, if you don't keep getting the pellet. So
Sure.
those are kind of good and bad of that. Sometimes the extrinsic motivation can crowd out intrinsic. So if you know that you're going to get a reward for pushing the lever and then you stop getting that reward, you haven't built in the, like you were talking about before, if you have not built in that internal fulfillment by pressing the lever just for the sake of pressing the lever, or learning case law for the sake of learning case law to master case law, then you're not going to study case law. You're not going to
Sure.
get that. So that can kind of crowd out the intrinsic part of that. So
Yep.
intrinsic motivation on the opposite side of that is where you're driven by something internally. You have an internal desire that satisfies what you were just talking about before, some core need for autonomy, for competence, for relatedness to other people, things like that.
Mhm.
The intrinsic motivation can take a little bit more effort up front. It requires a little bit more effort to get going often,
Sure.
but because it's internally driven, it's generally better to help sustain change. So once you get going, once you have that autonomy being fulfilled internally, that competency being fulfilled, that sense of relating to other people because you're doing something fulfilled, you
Sure.
are naturally going to sustain that a lot longer and a lot easier than always having to get that reward or
Mhm.
that on the flip side, having that punishment to keep you doing something. So
Sure.
there's that. The other part of intrinsic motivation, we're all different kinds of people. There's no one size fits all. So that's where having something we, I think, have talked about before is this idea of a motivation menu can help, where you balance some extrinsic, some intrinsic, different types of things, craft that for what you're trying to do, who you are, what your situation is, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was a whirlwind tour through motivation and why we need motivation. Aside from our goal setting conversation that we were having, I think one of the things that to me was very interesting is this idea that it's something that's evolved over millions and millions of years. Pre-humans is this idea of change,
Mm-hmm.
conserving. Uh, Change requires energy. Anything
Sure.
you have to do, get up off the couch, requires energy. And so humans, animals in general, have been designed to conserve that energy, to save that energy when they really need
Sure.
it, to go find food, to avoid getting killed by a predator, to procreate, all of those kinds of things. So that
Sure.
need to conserve energy is baked in. You need motivation, whether extrinsic or intrinsic, to help boost you to do something differently, assuming it's not an urgent fight or flight kind of thing. So there's that. The idea then that motivation of any flavor can help our brains overcome this preference for maintaining the status quo. I thought, to me, that's just fascinating that,
Yeah.
you have this millions and millions of years old bias built in, and we're trying to figure out how do we get ourselves to do something differently. It's just fascinating.
Well,
So
in organizations, though, I mean, as a, and we actually kind of see this even in nature, right? Organizations seek some degree of homeostasis, right, where everything is in balance and in
yeah,
equilibrium, and
water seeks its own level. We've talked
that's
about
right.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So biologically, we see this in the natural world all the time. We see this in ourselves as individuals, right? So that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And it's when when we don't have that equilibrium that we're like, well, now are we motivated to let it go, right? And avoid the conflict that's there, or are we motivated to make a change and get in there and into the fray and
Mhm.
but ultimately, even whether you're an individual or whether you're an organization, you're striving to get to some level of, again, equilibrium but uncomfortable enough where you're continuing to grow, right? So,
Right.
um,
So for those that want more, we've talked a lot about motivation in episode 73. So that's a gem. You can go back and listen to that, and
that's a good one. Yeah,
that will help ground some of this conversation and bring it all to the fore. So that's great. One of
sure.
the things that if it's okay, to pose a question here, one
Bring
of
it
the
up,
things that
man.
I've been kind of wondering is if you can achieve a goal without some level of motivation, and maybe that's sort of an academic, who cares kind of a question, but it does tie into one of the things that was something of a conversation starter from before, is
Mhm.
this idea that motivation is not a personality trait, or is it? And so that's maybe where I'm trying to move our conversation a little bit, is if motivation is a personality trait, then do you really need goals? On the flip
Mhm.
side, I'm not entirely convinced that motivation is a personality trait. So
I wouldn't say. I think.
unpack.
Yeah, I mean, I think traits factor into one's intrinsic motivation, right? So we are wired intrinsically to have certain preferences. The Holland code, for instance, the Holland has the standard SDS, and this is actually what ONET's My Next Move is built on. So if you go to, I think it's mynextmove.org, you can take a free assessment, but there's a deeper one called the standard uh, SDS. I believe it's self-directed search is what that means. And these Holland codes give us preferences for our work styles, right? So there's, it's the REASIC model. So it's realistic, investigative, artistic. Um, hold on, sorry. Uh, enterprising, conventional, and social, right? So those
Yeah.
those
No,
are those are those are the elements. Right?
okay. Just looking it up now. So we have, yes, you're absolutely right. The REASEC model developed by John Holland
By John Holland. Yeah.
categorizes people and careers into interest types. So like you said,
Right.
realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional.
Yep. And
you are on top of it with the acronyms today. SMART
Yeah.
goals, REASIC, man. To
uh,
all of
and
Rich's students,
it is
get going.
they're so used to
Yep,
me
yep.
talking in acronyms, and they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Hold on, I can put this on the board. Right. So but yeah, I mean, but it's that inclination that we have for the way that the type of work we want to do, the way that we like to work, right? That is part of that intrinsic model, right? So, and that's shaped by our personality, but it's also shaped by our cultural background and shaped by, how we were brought up and all of that, right? So that intrinsic portion, there's trait that factors into, but it's not a trait inherently that I see, right? But I think it's super important that we have the intrinsic or the extrinsic motivational factors, right? I mean, let's face it, we go to work to survive, right? We go to work to make money so we can afford the things that we need, right? But
Most of us do need to have some kind of gainful employment.
That's right. Whether you're a business person or in healthcare or a clergy person, you got to put bread on the table, right? So,
The lucky ones though have found a place where they can get paid, put bread on the table, but they're doing something that they love. And so
That's true.
there's that
Yes.
really lovely balance of intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. And
Absolutely.
they're in a role where they have that autonomy, that sense of competency, that relatedness to other people, the authority or independence or autonomy to make it happen. And they're just living the life they want to live, and they're getting paid a wage that they want.
Certainly. Yeah.
That's like the ideal state.
Right. And I have I know several people who consultants, business owners, who have realized that, we've talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs before, right? So there's that pinnacle of self-actualization, which is really, really hard to get to.
Yeah.
But the esteem and the self-efficacy, which is that next level down, right? That feeling of accomplishment is something that we aspire to, but when we hit that, it makes us want more, so it does factor into our extrinsic motivation as well. But there's a whole HR discipline on total rewards, right? And there's a reason that we have to have, right? People need to be extrinsically motivated, and it's not just the paycheck, right? So.
Right. This is like it's turning into a theory masterclass. We've talked about Locke and Latham and goal setting theory. You're just talking about John Holland and REASIC. You're talking about all sorts of other Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, this is just like fast and furious bedrock names of the biz trade. Good for you.
this is a 7:30 in the morning, and
This is a day in the life of Rich Cruz. Rich Cruz's
all.
students, chop chop.
It's
You got to be fluent, fast, and furious with all of these terms and theories. Get going.
there are some people, man, that I talk to. There's these groups of industrial organizational psychologists that I meet with. Either sometimes I meet with them once a week, sometimes it's a couple times a month. But they are spouting not only theories and so I'm just reflecting the stuff that they're throwing at me when we talk,
That's
because
great. Oh, that's brilliant.
it's just crazy how they can pull research from the most obscure places, something that happened in, Borneo or something like that, you know, they that we can apply to, our current state of affairs in the West. It's
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's nuts.
So before we take a break, do we think we can say that motivation is a personality trait, or not quite as directly as that?
I don't know. I don't think it's a trait. I think our traits. I mean, this is just me, man. But I think our traits help to govern our motivations, but it's
Mhm.
not a trait in itself, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm aligned with that approach,
So
with that way of
cool.
thinking. All right.
All right. Well, we're at that time. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, let's put a bow on this thing. Boy, this time has been flying by.
Theories flying fast and furious. Got you covered.
All right. We'll be right back.
Meet Hermie the HR Hermit Crab. Laugh, learn, and lead better with Hermie. Hermie is here to tackle workplace madness with heart and humor from Harmonious Workplaces. He's perfect for HR pros, leaders, and change makers. Hermie teaches workplace lessons through cartoons and is great for team discussions and workshops. Get your copy on Amazon now. www.hermiehrhermitcrab.com. Again, that's hermiehrhermitcrab.com.
And we're back. All right, Ben. So we were talking about motivation, and we went through some theories and the like, but part of that we talked about Maslow, right? Where we were motivated to have these various different levels of needs
Mhm.
taken care of. And we went into that. I don't remember what episode it was, but we had a bit of that in one of our episodes. But one of the things on that esteem level, that higher level there, is the feeling of being appreciated, right? And so you had mentioned in here about episode 87, which was a Thanksgiving episode, I think it might have been.
Might have been around then, yeah.
Sounds about right.
It would have been right around Thanksgiving, talking about gratitude and how that can lead to empathy,
Mhm.
and how that empathy can lead to resilience, and how resilience is strongly correlated at an individual level and indirectly at an organizational level. But we kind of made that bridge
Mhm.
to improved organizational financial performance and positive work environment. So gratitude and building this sense of gratitude is just the fountain of all of these wonderful things that can come from that. And I guess one of the things, since we're talking about goal setting and motivation, and we've just linked those two, and we have this whole grand theory knitting together John Holland, Maslow, and Locke and Latham, is can you have gratitude also leading then to improved goals and improved motivation?
Sure. And we've talked about feedback being important. In fact, that's an important part of the knowledge to performance model that we had in our TD magazine article,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Talent
Thank you,
Development Magazine.
ATD.
Thank you very much, TTD. Appreciate that. um, but yeah, the feedback loop, right, is
Mhm.
critical. Not only for continuous improvement and to go back and look at goals and all that stuff, but just you know we need that spike in those positive hormones, right? And that comes from somebody acknowledging that we contributed and being grateful, and then ourselves being grateful for the opportunity to have
Mhm. Mhm.
performed something that was valuable.
Right. 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 Being grateful for having the opportunity to do something to serve others. And some years ago, it was this whole idea of servant leadership that was sort of sweeping the
Mm,
management industry, and the idea that you're kind of doing this for the benefit of others, not just the benefit of yourself, not just enriching yourself through your salary and all of that, but that you're doing this to enrich others in their career journey and
mm,
helping them get what they need. And now I think maybe the evolution of that is this idea that managers are becoming more coaches as opposed to just managers. So
sure.
it's really interesting to see how these terms evolve, but the concepts are kind of the same, if you will, just
Yeah.
used slightly differently for a different era, if you will.
Yeah. I can't help but to think about one of the episodes I think is one of our most powerful episodes that we've had, which was Viktor Frankl and
Man's
logo.
search for meaning.
Yeah, so yeah, then logotherapy,
Oh,
where
yeah.
you know the meaning of one, not only one's life, but the meaning of one at work too, right? Is creating work that has a purpose, has an end to it, that fosters a sense of, if I remember correctly, it was some sense of community and belonging and love, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then there was the finding the meaning through challenges. In this particular case, suffering is what he specifically says, right? But you know, uh, I think I don't know why my mind went there, but it feels like this ties that logo therapy feels like
It's
it
very
ties
much
very strong.
tied to gratitude in the same way that you're placing yourself not at the center. You're doing something
Right.
for others, you're recognizing others, and you're doing something that would benefit others. And so whether it's showing gratitude, for example, for you for hosting our podcast with me and with Cheryl, for doing a lot of the work behind the scenes, all of that, putting up with my really bad jokes. Thank you for doing that. That gratitude can then also, it's the same concept of I'm doing something for the benefit of someone else. So I'm in a really horrible situation, but I'll sacrifice a little bit of my gains or my rewards so that this other person can have a little bit of benefit too, or a little bit less punishment.
Well, then thanks, Ben. And I'm grateful that you put together these show notes, because I would have no idea where we're going. I mean, I'm already a loose cannon, but
I think it's
having
great. No, because 98% of the time I'm the one jumping the shark on our episodes. And so it's nice to have a co-shark jumper.
well, it's always glad to have a Fonzarelli on the show, man.
Hey.
So, yeah, Ben, we're about at a time where we need to wrap this up, right? And so, how can we put the kind of a tidy bow on this? So we've kind of said that motivation is not a personality trait, but traits factor into it, right? We have internal and external motivation, or intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Um, what what final words of wisdom do you have that you could
Well,
distill out of this?
to sort of take it back to the intro of the show today and linking it to last episode, we were talking about goal setting. We were just talking more today about motivation aspect of goal setting.
Mhm.
We posed the question at the beginning, what can you do to create motivation or keep motivation going? And so I think that just ties everything together in terms of what we've been talking about for last week and this week.
Right.
You need to have some sort of extrinsic or intrinsic motivation to kickstart some desire to achieve something differently. It can be a blend of extrinsic and intrinsic. It often works best when it is a blend and you figured out that blend by working with whoever you're trying to motivate, even if it's yourself, working with yourself to use all of the things we talked about from goal setting theory and SMART goals to make that a realistic, achievable type of goal that you're then motivated to try to achieve. So, what's one thing you could do? Is find that little thing that you can achieve somewhat easily, somewhat quickly, but that's challenging
But
enough
you have a challenge.
that
Yeah,
you can
right.
achieve
Right.
it. Yeah, it's got to be somewhat challenging or you're never
Mhm.
going to get off the couch. But
Right.
you have to have some reward that's going to balance that getting off the couch. And the idea of having some feedback or coaching or help to do that until it becomes intrinsic to where you want to do that.
Right.
You don't reach for the donut, you reach for the barbell or whatever. And so it's all of that is woven together, and it's not like there's a secret sauce here. It's all sort of just tying it all together
Right.
in an individualized way that becomes the magic, and that's very very doable, but just requires a little bit of effort and intentionality. And that's where people
Sure.
like us come.
Right on. Cool. Nicely put, Ben. Well, speaking of us, if we'd love to hear from our audience, how do you stay motivated? How are you helping yourself to stay motivated? How are you helping your team to stay motivated? And are you experiencing, those, and I think everybody does, right? Experience those issues where either you're not, or you don't have it, or, your team doesn't have it. We'd love to hear from you. And I think those stories are powerful.
Yeah, I would love to hear stories, people's favorite motivational story or favorite story of motivation gone wrong. Those are also super fun too. The motivation outtakes reel,
Right
like
on.
the goal setting outtakes reel,
Yeah.
smart goals that were not so smart.
I love it. I love it. So you can go to harmoniousworkplaces.com. We have we have several contact forms out there. And of
Yeah,
course, um, we do have some free resources up there. So check out, we've got a culture scorecard, psychological safety white paper, a change management framework that's simple and easy to do and easy to understand, but super powerful, that Ben put together. And
yeah.
all kinds of other things, including, of course, our little friend,
That's
Herbie
where I
the
thought you were
Hermit.
going to go. Is you can ask Hermie the HR hermit crab a question. So if you have a question, or if you'd like to submit something to Hermie, Hermie will answer, and with your permission, we'll recognize you. Without your permission, we'll just do it anonymously. But
That's right.
that would be a lovely way to get some HR expert advice from our resident hermit crab.
Right on. So all you have to do is go to harmoniousworkplaces.com/ask Hermie and fill out that form and they'll get to work for you. All right, Ben. Well, that about
Cool.
wraps it up. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody, on our 95th podcast. Just 5 more to go to that 100 mark, Ben.
To the century number.
That's right. All right. Well, friends, until we meet again, make change your friend. Thanks for listening to Harmonious Workplaces. You can find Harmonious Workplaces on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and other streaming platforms. We'd love any feedback on whatever channel you find us on. Please rate, like, and share our podcast with your network, and remember to add Harmonious Workplaces to your list of favorites to get notified about each new episode. To contact Rich or Cheryl, please visit www.workbalanceconsulting.com. To connect with Ben, Find him on LinkedIn or visit at www.harborsidestrategy.com.